Hello.
Mr. Murdoch.
Yes.
Hi, this is Steve from Cage Side Seats, and my co-host Peter is with me. Our show is called Glove Up or Shut Up. Thank you for giving us the time tonight.
Oh, right on, man. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure and our honor, too, because this is the first time we've had an NWA World's Heavyweight Champion on the line. So let me just start with that. I know that you grew up as a wrestling fan just like Peter and I did, and I know you even trained at the Harley Race Academy, and he was one of the greatest NWA champions of all time. So what does this title mean to you with that lineage?
I carry a huge amount of pride, and there's a whole lot of pressure too. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I represent the people that have been, before me, and make sure that I don't do anything to besmirch, I guess, the NWA World Title. Harley Race was, in my opinion, one of the best NWA World Heavyweight Champions. So I just want to do my best to try to live up. It's my way of, kind of giving back and representing what Harley did for me, and also, a type of wrestling that isn't so prevalent nowadays. You know what I mean? Everybody calls me old school. Like, Trevor, you wrestle so old school. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I'm just wrestling in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not wrestling old school. Like, I'm not doing a style. That's just who I am. I just try to be, I kind of bring a smash mouth style of wrestling, uh, back to pro wrestling, if that makes any sense.
Oh no, it makes perfect sense. In fact, if you did anything else with Tyrus at NWA 74 this weekend, I think the outcome wouldn't be so good. I think you gotta have a smash mouth, bare knuckle wrestling style when you fight a guy that size.
Yeah, we're not going to have the technical match of the year. Like, that's, and then in December when they're putting all the year-end reports out, we're not going to win that award. But what's going to happen is we're going to go out there and test each other's mettle and see, who the toughest guy is. And that, I know he carries a lot of pride when it comes to the NWA. He has a lot of love for previous NWA world champions like Dusty Rhodes and, of course, Harley and stuff like that. So he wants to be the man too. You know what I mean? That's the
I apologize, sir. I think our line dropped.
yeah, it did. I'm literally sitting in my recliner. I have great service, so
Yeah,
I'm not moving anywhere. So I don't know what's going on.
and Skype is digital too, so I don't think it could be them. But if it's anybody, it's them. So I'll just pick up where you left off and say that I know Tyrus is a great competitor and that you two will have a hard-hitting match, but I also know that originally you were scheduled to face Nick Aldis, and that match got changed to Tyrus at the last minute. Were you disappointed, given that Aldis was the man you beat for the title the first time?
I wouldn't say disappointed was the way I was feeling. I'm in a mindset right now, like, I don't care who you put in front of me. Just make them worthy. Make sure they're worthy. You know what I mean? And when I heard that it was Nick at first, um, I know Nick probably better than anybody in the company. For 6 months, him and I battled back and forth and played mental games, and I probably know him better than anybody. So there was a certain part of me that was excited, knowing to a certain extent what I was dealing with going into the match. Um, and obviously that didn't work out. Things got changed, and Tyrus got put in that position. And I've never wrestled Tyrus before. Like, that's Tyrus and I've known each other a long time, but we've never and it almost a little intentional. We've never had a match with each other, because we know, like, it's going to be really physical and it's going to be really painful for both of us. So we wanted to make sure that it'd be worth it, at least a huge payday. And turns out it's not only a huge payday, but it's also for the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
And it couldn't be in a more prestigious location than at the Chase. It's the historic ballroom that so many great NWA matches have taken place at.
For sure, man. There's a lot of legends that walked through those halls and stepped into that ballroom. And again, I revert back to Harley. He helped kind of build that house. Wrestling at the Chase was something that he was a huge part of. So for me to be a part of it, not only did I help bring back wrestling at the Chase for the first time in 37 years last year, I also got to wrestle for the main event, or in the main event for the World Heavyweight title. And now that I'm coming back and doing it again, but this time as champion, is a lot of pride in that. You know what I mean? Like, I've worked really hard to get where I'm at, and I think me and Tyrus are going to tear it up. And if there's anything left between us, I think I'll have my hand raised at the end of it, hopefully.
Well, speaking of if there's anything left, that brings me to Matt Cardona, because he seems to have this idea that he's the uncrowned champion. So if you have anything left, would you like to take that up with him?
Oh, 100%. And to a certain extent, like, I'll give him the credit where it's due. Like, he is right. Like, he had to hand that world title over. He didn't lose it. So I definitely am raising my hand that if I get done with Tyrus, if Matt's ready to go and he's healthy, yeah, I want that W back. I think Matt, he owes me a rematch. And to be honest with you, I think he wants one too.
But do you think some of his comments cross the line a little bit when he talks about how, you mentioned before already, people tell you that you're old school or traditional. Well, he seems to think you're too old school and that you're out of touch, and he's implied as much.
Oh, dude, everybody's gonna say what they can to get under your skin, man. This is where the experience in me comes in. This isn't the first time somebody's called me old school, somebody's called me fat, somebody's called me out of touch. Like, but I'm still here, you know what I mean? And he still had to come to me to get that world title. You know what I mean? And now I've got it again. So he's, he can say all he wants, man. He can do whatever he needs to get the Twitter followers fired up. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you've got to step into the ring with me and handle business. And that's where I'll do all my talking.
Right on. I totally agree with that. And I know we're all looking forward to seeing it on Fight TV this weekend. But I also want to ask you something about injuries, because you talked about the physical toll that wrestling can take. And for a few years there in the 2010s, it seemed like you were out of the wrestling business altogether. So was that just an accumulation of pain, or did you just need some time away to breathe for a while?
It wasn't so much that I did need to have my body recoup a little bit, man. But in the same sense, I think every wrestler at a certain time in their career kind of goes through the lull period where nothing just seems to be going the way they want it to be going. You know what I mean? And there's a certain maturity level that I think that goes on when you go through something like that. And that's what I was going through. You know what I mean? I was felt, Nick Aldis, coined. He didn't coin the phrase. I coined it, but he brought it out. I felt like a round peg in a square world, and that's how I felt when it came to pro wrestling. And I was kind of on my way out, legitimately, especially with Harley's health diminishing, and but NWA really kind of revived my career and reminded me that there's still a whole lot more left in the tank, and that people still do enjoy grown-ass men going out there beating the shit out of each other.
Right on. Hey, on that very note, I want to turn it over to my glove-up co-host, Peter H., because he's a man who loves watching grown men beat the shit out of each other all over Canada. So, Peter, what questions do you have for our special guest, Trevor Murdoch?
First of all, up here in Ottawa, Ontario, it's hard when I'm growing up here to watch NWA wrestling. So to see the resurgence of it now is almost like, I hate to say the word throwback, but it makes me wish I was growing up in that era with the Harley Race, the Ric Flairs, you know what I mean? That type of era. But I have to ask, besides, the ballroom does sound like an amazing venue, and you wrestle all over, the United States and Canada. Is there a country or another promotion that, like New Japan Pro Wrestling, is there another country that you'd like to wrestle in before you retire?
I've wrestled in so many countries throughout my career. I've been doing this for 22 years. I lived in Japan for 6 months. I wrestled over there. I went through the dojo for 6 months for Noah Pro Wrestling when Misawa was around, Kobashi, Takayama. It was a really, a strong style company. I really have a lot of memories of Japan. So I would love to have the opportunity to take the world title over to Japan and defend it. Kind of like what Harley got to do. You know what I mean? That's something I would like to, that's a bucket list item for me for sure.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the Tasmanian Devil tattoo. Is there a funny story behind that?
Man, it's just, being an idiot kid. It's really, plain and simple, man. My older brother was with me when I turned 18, and he asked me what I wanted for my birthday. He's going to take me out and get, we were going to go have some drinks, even though I wasn't supposed to, I wasn't old enough to drink, but 18's a big, it's a big a big moment in a young man's life. And I said I wanted to go get a tattoo. And he's like, shit, yeah, all right, let's go. I'll take it. I'll buy it for you. And we get there, man, and I can't think of, like, I'm looking at all these options, like these dream catchers and wolves and motorcycles with, crazy women on them. And none of it seems appealing to me. And I got through, like these cartoon characters, and I came across Taz, and I was like, will I be okay with Taz on my arm when I'm 40 years old? Like, will I be okay with that? Like, all right. And I was like, as long as I don't make them stupid, everybody loves Taz. And so sure enough, that was my first tattoo that my brother bought for me, was Taz, doing the whole, trying to flex. And it's something like, when I got to WWE, like, people had brought up, like, maybe you should get that covered up. And I laugh about it because it's part of me. It's who I am. You know what I mean? I've got 2 tattoos, one on each side now. One's a Tasmanian Devil that shows, I can be goofy at times and have a good time and relax. But then there on the other side, there's a bull ripping out of my skin where, like, with a flip of a switch, I have the worst temper. And I have no problem expressing how I feel to you. If you made me angry, wronged me, or even, my wife, my poor wife, God love her. Like, I embarrass the shit out of her because I'm the type of individual that if I see, like, a jerk that just leaves their cart, like, fills up, unloads their car and then just, like, leaves the cart in a parking spot, I'm the guy that, like, calls them out, like, hey, way to be lazy and fuck the next person. You know what I mean? And I really am a forward individual, and that's how I live my life. And it embarrasses the shit out of my wife sometimes. But I think people need to be called out on their ignorance when they're being ignorant. There used to be a time in this world that, when somebody was doing something wrong, you could say something to them and not worry about getting shot or 5 or 6 other people jumping on you. They were being, they were out of place and someone called them on it. All right, you called me on it. I apologize. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. And you move on. That's how life used to be. But nowadays it seems when you call somebody out on something, they get offended that you called them out on their bad behavior and want to play victim. And that's just crazy to me at times.
And everybody's got a video camera on their smartphone too these days. Yeah.
So, when you're being an idiot, it's really hard for me to hold my tongue and say, you're being an idiot. Stop. Just use common sense. Just, don't be an idiot. Don't be hateful to people. Don't be mean to people. And don't try to make someone else's life a little difficult because you want to be lazy.
Now, as far, like, I know right now we're on the eve of another NFL season. What team do you cheer for?
Oh, I'm a Chiefs guy, bro. I'm a Missouri boy. Like, I'm all Patrick Mahomes, man. I was Chiefs guy before Patrick Mahomes. This is, Kansas City's it's my football team. And before that, it wasn't before that, but I was also a Rams fan. Both my son and my son's a huge, huge Rams fan. He's still a Rams fan. He made the comment to him when they moved to LA. I was like, "You still going to cheer for the Rams?" He's like, "Yeah, Dad, I'm not no bandwagoner. I don't just, drop them because they left. It's not their fault. I still love the Rams." And I was like, "Right on. I dig your loyalty." So for him and I, in this household, it's Rams, Chiefs, Rams, Chiefs.
Yeah, my household here, me and my wife, it's I'm Patriots, she's Packers.
My wife can care less about football. I'm completely okay with that, though.
My wife isn't too big into the NFL, but she loves college football. She is 100%. Every Saturday, she is glued.
Not my wife. She is my wife. God love her. She would come to my wrestling matches before she was my wife. She would come to my wrestling matches and she would read a book while the show's going on. Wow. And then when my music would hit, she'd put her book down and she'd watch the whole match. She'd get into it, enjoy it, react to it just like everybody else. Whatever the outcome was, my match would be finished. I'd go to the back. She'd pick her book back up and go back to reading. My wife is very supportive of whatever I'm doing when it comes to sports and athletics, but she has no interest outside of that.
That's understandable. I mean, at least she's there when it counts. I mean, you can't ask for more than that.
Sure. No, I got a good old, my queen, she's a good one.
Mm-hmm. So how does that work out for you when you have to travel around for different shows? Does your family stay at home or do they come with you?
It just depends really what event it is and how far the travel is. When I was with WWE, I brought my wife and kids to all the WrestleManias with me. I've been doing this for 22 years, and my wife has been with me for approximately 18 of those 22 years. So she's been to a lot of places. So wrestling and traveling in that aspect is not new and exciting for her. But like the Chase is only 2.5 hours away. And on these big shows, I tend to get taken care of and they put me up in a nice little, suite. So my wife and kids will come and I'll be able to enjoy them being around, which is really nice for me. It's a really calming to have my wife and kids close, like within an instant at a wrestling show. It doesn't happen very often. So for me, it's a very calming effect. But my 16-year-old son has traveled with me virtually to probably half of my shows throughout, since the day he was potty trained. I told my wife, I was like, "Hey, once you tell me he can go to the bathroom, he can go with me." You know what I mean? And I've taken him everywhere. And I mean, literally I would take him, he would come with me, stay with me in the locker room, sit next to me almost like a puppy dog, you know what I mean? And was very, well behaved and understood that at this age and this time it was better seen, not heard. And it was he really likes pro wrestling, but he doesn't want to do it because he's seen what I've had to deal with physically.
That was going to be my next question, actually. You beat me to the punch because we've seen so many people following their father's footsteps. And one of my favorites right now is Nick Wayne. He's following in the footsteps of his father, the late, great Buddy Wayne, who trained so many pro wrestlers himself. And I really like seeing multi-generational talent, but I can also understand if he's seen how much pain you've had to endure through your career, why he'd say, maybe I want to do something else for a living.
Well, and I've also told him many a time that you can make a lot of money hitting a little ball with a little stick, and stay in your body. He's really big into baseball. I've done my best to afford my son every opportunity to be successful in baseball. camps. He plays fall ball, spring ball, summer ball. And when there's no baseball, he's playing basketball. As of right now, he wants to play for the MLB, and I'm doing everything I can. I even got a friend of mine from New York that knows some scouts in New York that gave me the Iggy that, you know, when he's ready, they're more than willing to come down and take a look at him. And I'm like, well, he's a junior in high school. Let's get to the senior year and see how senior year goes, you know, before you put that pressure on somebody, you know. But
well, if he ends up playing college ball, I wouldn't mind if he wound up at a good school that was in the College World Series, because that's right here in Omaha.
Well, and, you know, that's up to him and his decision. And most likely that's what's going to end up happening anyway. I would prefer him to go through that experience, not just for baseball, but you know, whether he decides to go to, if he wants to play college ball, obviously he's going to have to go to college. I want him to experience college life a little bit, and, you know, what it's like to be a kid and to enjoy life and be responsible. But, you know, you grow up so fast, and there's going to be one day where you're going to have to work for a living. And I want to make sure, like with my daughter, you know, enjoy college, enjoy the life that you have, because there's going to get to a point in time where you're going to have to work and do nothing but work.
Yeah, that's understandable. And college is that perfect transition time where, like you said, you're still young enough to enjoy it, but you also have to start to figure things out. You have to figure out what you want to do for a living, have to do your own laundry, fix your own meals. You have to, it's a great stepping stone to the rest of your life.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Peter, back to you. Let's hear some more questions from you.
So I know we just are on the tail end of this whole, you know, COVID pandemic, and I'm wondering, I always end up being the guy on the interviews here that asks the crazy off the wall questions. What was the last concert you attended?
Actually a Smashing Pumpkins concert.
Nice.
Billy played down by my house, about 25 minutes from my house at the Lake Amphitheater. And obviously, because he's the boss, I got hooked up with some great seats, some backstage tickets. It was actually pretty funny, man. Like, I don't go out publicly a lot, man, because it's just, sometimes it's a headache. Plus, I'm a large guy, so when I get in crowds, people are always bumping into me, and it's just you know, a headache at times. But it was really nice when we got to go to the Smashing Pumpkins concert. I went up to the will call, my tickets were there, and these Smashing Pumpkin, like, backstage stickers were available, and the lady's like, you have to put these on. And I was like, okay. So we walk through and get our tickets, and I go up to one of the concierge guys, and I was like, hey, man, I was told to put this on. Where does this get me? And he looks at it, and he's like, I don't know, you know, shit, you know, big deal here. And he gets on his radio and talks to some guy, and some other guy with another walkie-talkie comes up and looks at it. He goes, man, with that, you can go anywhere. I said, what do you mean anywhere? He goes, do you want to go backstage right now? I was like, well, that'd be cool. He goes, well, let's go. Like, that will get you anywhere in the amphitheater, which I thought was really cool that Billy got for us. And went and, you know, brought my best friend Bull and his wife, and me and my wife. We had an adult night and just sat back and watched the Smashing Pumpkins kill it for 2.5 hours.
So what is that like anyway, having the president of the NWA also be a bona fide world recognized rock star? Do you find that strange, or does it just seem like water under the bridge, totally normal by now?
Well, man, it's like now it's totally normal, but, like, you know, that's pro wrestling, man. Like, a famous rock star, a multi-platinum recording artist owns a pro wrestling company. That title in itself is just crazy. But the thing is, when you talk to Billy and you get to know him a little bit, like, he is such a huge fan of pro wrestling, and almost like a historian of pro wrestling. And that was one of the things my best friend Bull brought up. We were backstage and at the Smashing Pumpkins concert. We went back there after the concert and sat down with Billy, and me and Bull are just wanting to praise him. And Bull, that's my buddy Bull, it's his nickname. He's a wrestler too, so and we're just wanting to praise Billy on what an awesome show it was, and all Billy wants to do is talk about pro wrestling. So you almost forget like what he's done and who he is outside of the building, or you know what I mean? You just realize he's just a pro wrestling fan that loves wrestling and wants to bring back a smash mouth style of pro wrestling that kind of carves our own niche in this world. You know what I mean?
Well, there could be no better guy to lead the National Wrestling Alliance than that, but I know that he also took it over from the late Howard Brody, who just passed away, so is there any plan of a tribute to Howard at NWA 74?
I'm not sure. Right now, like we're 4 days away, 3 days away, 4 days away from my show. Right now, I'm focused, bro. I'm like I've been huddled down in the house. I've been hitting the gym, doing cardio twice a day, watching tapes, just doing some tape study to try to get prepared for what's going to happen at 74. Outside of that, I couldn't tell you. There could be a tornado going on around my house. I would be able to know, bro. I got horse blinders on, man, because I got a monster of a man to deal with.
No, I understand that, and we live in Tornado Alley in the Midwest, so there literally could be a tornado outside right now, and we wouldn't know.
100%, yeah.
I've tried explaining that to Peter because he doesn't deal with that in Canada. I'm like, anywhere from like Minnesota to Texas, you got a chance of seeing a tornado at any time of day.
Yep, you're 100% on that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had a tornado warning like a couple of weeks ago, but it's so rare. It's like I heard it and I was like, wait, did Stevie playing a prank on me? Is that real? And turns out it was a fluke tornado.
Go outside the house and look for them,
man. That's one thing I'm never going to do is go outside looking for a tornado. If I see one, I'm turning around going the other direction as fast as I can. I don't understand people who chase tornadoes for a living. I could never do that.
We had one come through our small little town here about 5 years ago, and it started about 5 blocks from my house, and thankfully it went in opposite direction, but it went right through the middle of town. And my poor town we were chewed up for probably a good 4 or 5 months, man. We were rebuilding.
I can understand that. There are some towns here in Iowa and Nebraska that just disappeared off the map after a tornado. It's people, if they haven't seen it, if they haven't been through it, they just can't quite understand what it's like. I've seen them rip trees out of the ground, roots sticking up in the air. I've seen roofs ripped off of high schools. It's nothing to mess with.
Nope, not at all.
Just like you're nothing to mess with. I'm using that as a segue. I hope you don't mind. But Tyrus better be ready for a tornado in the ring when he faces you.
Yep, that's right, man.
All right, Trevor, let me get some plugs out from you. Some whatever, social media. Probably not the best place in the world these days with everybody trying to be a smartass on social media. But I know you've got some. And, of course, NWA 74 on Fight TV this weekend.
Yeah, man. You guys can catch me on Instagram and Twitter at The Real T Murdoch. And then on Facebook, I've got the little blue check mark next to my name. So that's where I'm at on social media.
All right, Peter, anything else you'd like to ask Trevor before we let him go tonight?
No, I mean, I feel bad I didn't ask about Lance Cade because that's the first time I watched you wrestle here in Canada. I think it might have been on Raw or SmackDown back in the day. But I mean, just to wrap things up, do you have any funny Lance Cade stories?
There was there's stories I can't tell, man. To be honest with you, but Lance, what I will say this, Lance is truly missed, man. But he was one of those, wrestler. Like, he went out there, he was 280 pounds with like 4 or 5% body fat, a heavyweight that can move like a cruiserweight. Go in there and not only make himself look strong, but make the smallest guy in the world look like he could whoop his ass. If he was still around, I'd probably be wrestling him for the title. You know what I mean? Like, he would have been perfect for the NWA. I remember when him and I would get together and we'd go out as a tag team, like, we had no boundaries, especially at house shows. When we didn't have like TV and have to worry about the boundaries of TV and time limits and stuff, like, we would go out in the crowd and just do some crazy antics, and he would feed off me and I would feed off him. That was one of the things that made us so good as a tag team. It's crazy, man. It's almost it's like a psychic premonition kind of thing. I could literally be in the ring and look at Lance and just look at him, and he would know what I was thinking, and vice versa. That's how, like, everything kind of clicked for us when we first started. I got my job with WWE, and there was no plans for me and Lance to be on a team. I just got my job, and they were going to try to find a gimmick for me, you know what I mean? And I was headed to developmental. And right about the time as I got my job, Lance had pitched the idea of, a trucker and a cowboy. Him and Kevin Thorne actually pitched the idea. And Kevin had gotten into some trouble, and they really liked the idea of the trucker cowboy, and they had just hired me, so they put us together one weekend to see, how we'd look as a tag team. And they even told us, they said, Lance, you're going to wrestle with Trevor this weekend, and then next weekend you're going to wrestle with Kevin, and we're going to take a look at both you guys. And I figured, Lance knew Kevin, that was his buddy, so I was just going to come up and wrestle for the weekend and then go back home and continue packing to head to developmental. And Lance and I went out there. We actually wrestled CM Punk and Bobby Lashley while they were still in developmental before they were brought up. They were just looking at them, and they tagged them together. And that was early in Bobby's early days. Like, it was trying to, like, moving him around was like trying to move a refrigerator. You know what I mean? It was just big and bulky, man. But we went out there and had a great match with those guys, and we had another match the next night. We come back to the curtain, and Johnny Ace stopped us, and him and I had a really good connection in the ring. We were both trained similar to a certain extent because Sean and Harley were kind of from that same era a little bit. Sean was a little bit obviously younger than Harley, but they had that same old school mentality. So we were trained with the similar stories telling, ideas when it comes to psychology. And when Johnny stopped us, and asked Lance, hey, listen, you wrestled with Kevin down at OVW. I don't need to look at him. Do you think you'd have a better team with, Kevin or Trevor? And Lance spoke up right there and said, I think I've got more chemistry with Trevor. And he goes, great. He goes, you guys are on the road this week. And that's legit. Like, I never even seen the inside of developmental. I couldn't tell you what the parking lot looked like of OVW because I got hired, went straight onto the road. 6 weeks later, we were World Tag Team Champions.
That's an amazing story. And it's also a chance for me to say I know it had to break your heart when he passed away 12 years ago. So if I couldn't have said it before now, Peter gave me the opportunity. My condolences on his passing. And I know he's still watching. And he's still proud of you today.
Yeah, man. He's definitely missed, man.
Right on. Well, have a great match at NWA 74 against Tyrus, and hopefully his spirit will continue to live on, seeing you defend the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It was our pleasure, sir. Have a good night.
All right. Take care, boys. Bye.